His works color, he works play-by-play, he works a variety of sports. You have your own you do writing and sports commentary after the fact and analysis, so the full gamut. And you are an independent. You do not work for anybody but yourself.
I've gotten it to the point where I'm a freelance guy, and up until COVID came, I'm doing 140 games a year or so. So it took a while to get there, and I'll tell you about that in a moment. But that's sometimes if you want to do this, be it production or be it a play-by-play or on-air talent, they call you usually need to go.
Yeah. The economy is moving more and more to a gig economy. We've talked about that, where you're basically your own employer. You work for you, and you go out and you hire your clients. You know, for me, I've now got my fourth main client I just picked up. So, you know, who books me out in different and gives me calls. You've got your scores of people who call you and work with you. And that's what you have to do. You have to build those contacts, build your rep, and always do the best job you can, because that's how you sustain your rep. And with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to the man.
Well, I'm going to tell you, it's not a 9-to-5 job, and I was never one of those guys that I could sit in a cubicle. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to be involved with sports. I think you guys have a great opportunity here, be it on the production side or from a talent standpoint, that you're going to get some experience. And I'm just going to give you a little background. In my case, I went to the University of Kansas, and I really wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. And my family had businesses and all kind of stuff. I didn't want to get into the family business, but I also had a grandfather that was head football coach at University of Kansas, and I had an uncle that was a head basketball coach at Florida State. So there was a lot of sports. And believe it or not, I played high school basketball in small town America in Kansas. So if you get from a small town, you might get a chance to play, and played in some state championships and all that kind of stuff. And went to the University of Kansas, wasn't sure what I wanted to do, and one day I saw a little clip, and I don't know if it's in your brochure here or your syllabus, but in terms of what's available at the college, and I saw, hey man, this is pretty cool, a sports broadcasting class. So I signed up for it. There were 7 kids at that time, and one of the first assignments was to go broadcast a University of Kansas game in Allen Fieldhouse. If you're a basketball fan or you're a sports fan, I go, you gotta be kidding me. And, you know, I mean, here I was taking calculus, I was taking accounting. Now, not that those aren't important, because you need to do that. And it really worked out for me well. I was so far into it that I ended up with a business degree from University of Kansas, and got incredible experience working for the Kansas Jayhawk Sports Network. And I'm going, man, this would be a kind of a cool way to make a living. You know, if you can find something that you're interested in. Most of us aren't independently wealthy, so we have to work for a living. And if you can find something you really like and really enjoy, and you can make a living at it, you know, do that. But I didn't really have too much of a background at that point in broadcasting. I had nothing like this. I mean, you guys are ahead of the game to at least have the opportunity to get in here and learn all the aspects of it. So I ended up at the University of Tennessee and ended up with a master's degree from there, and did a thesis on play-by-play broadcasting nationwide. What that allowed me to do was to try to, because at that time, a little bit year or two older than you guys, but believe me, I thought I was God's gift to broadcasting. You know, I mean, I'm better than these guys that look like me, these old guys, you know. So, and the other thing about that was, when I got out to Tennessee, was I needed a job. I mean, I'm in graduate school, I got bills to pay just like all you guys do. So I ended up knocking on doors, and one of the keys to success, and it took me a long time to figure this out, is you have got to be aggressive in your pursuit of what you want to do. You need to visit with people, you need to talk to them, you need to tell people that you're available. And the other thing that you need to do is you have to be versatile in what you do. There were times I ended up with a job at Clemson because they needed somebody to go to Dallas, Texas to broadcast women's basketball at Thanksgiving. Well, I probably was the 15th person that they called. I'm so far down the list, and I said, yep, I'll go. And when I went there, I did the games there. And fortunately, they kind of enjoyed or liked what I did. That led me to be able to broadcast Clemson baseball, Clemson women's basketball, and all that kind of stuff. that opened the doors out this way anyway for me to make contact with a lot of different people, which in turn led to me having the ability to do what I'm doing right now. Right now, I do Furman football, basketball, and we used to do baseball until they dropped the program, and also work with My 40 on Friday nights and do all their games. And then I'm also one of the Greenville Drive broadcasters, and we do 60 or 70 games a year. When I was back in Kansas, you sometimes have to take jobs to get your foot in the door. You need to be on the air, you need to be behind the scenes, you need to be doing it. So the first job that I got, and I was very fortunate coming out of graduate school, is I got hired. I took all my stuff, dumped it at home. I'm from Pittsburgh, Kansas, a little small town 2 hours south of Kansas City. And unbelievably, at that time, they had an opening for a sports director at a radio station. And part of it was doing the play-by-play for the local college. And I go, man, I grew up here. I want to go. I want to go someplace else. But it turns out I was probably your age, a couple of years older, and all of a sudden I'm doing college football. They're Division II power. I ended up broadcasting 5 national championships, 38 playoff games, and that led to knowing other people and doing a lot of different things. But the other part about that is you need to make yourself versatile, because out here, what I do for Furman in football, I'm their pre-game, halftime, post-game guy. I'm not the play-by-play guy. 25 years before I got out here, I was the main guy. I was the play-by-play guy. And my wife, we moved out here because my wife was hired by Channel 4 to do the weekend weather. And that's the first time I looked for a job in 25 years. I mean, you guys are starting. And I started knocking on doors, and the only job that I could get was down at Clemson at WCCP, which it turned out to be a great gig because, and it was doing, here I had done 5 national championships, and I thought, you know what, I'm pretty good here. My background's pretty good. The only job I could get was doing high school color on football and radio. But again, it led to me knowing people at Clemson. It led to other things like that. So sometimes you have to do what you need to do to get your foot in the door, and you have to be versatile. So I had always been a play-by-play guy, and all of a sudden I'm a color guy on radio. Man, I hadn't been. But the great thing about that, and the great thing about being doing pregame, halftime, postgame, all that kind of stuff, is that you have. I really probably didn't give the color guy enough credit when I was the play-by-play guy, because I thought I was the main guy, and so I got to flip over and do color on radio, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, now I know where this guy's coming from. The other part about that too is I was a play-by-play guy, on-air guy. Most of your color guys are former players, former coaches that don't have a broadcasting background. So what really has helped us at Furman and with the Greenville Drive and everybody, any of the things I've done before, is the fact that we both have been able to do whatever you need to take, the play-by-play or the color aspect of it. And I do the color on my 40, and I've always been a play-by-play guy. Well, I know what the play-by-play guy needs to do, when he needs to do it, what he needs to get in. Now, having said that, as you develop, if you want to be a play-by-play guy, is there's no one style. I mean, you can watch as much as you want and don't imitate anybody, but you have to get on the air and you have to do it. When I first started, I thought I really was going to be the world's greatest play-by-play guy, and I'm going to describe every blade of grass. I'm going to tell you what, man, nobody's ever done it like me before. What you do is you tape it, and you go back and you listen, and I sounded like an idiot. I mean, I still have those tapes. I've taped everything, and I had a newspaper guy call me the other day as they were doing some national championship game recap type of thing and bringing the players back from 1991 and all that kind of jazz a long time ago. And they asked me, I've been out here 15 years, I'd been back in the Midwest for 20 years, and they said, well, what are you doing out there? And I kind of told them what I was doing. And they figured it out. that over the course of my career, I've done 4,000 games. I hadn't realized that.
Wow.
And what that means, it doesn't mean you're any good, but it means, and what I always tell people is, I've made every mistake in the history of sports broadcasting. I've taped everything. I go back and listen to it. And the other thing you need to do as you begin in your career, be it on the production side or be it as a play-by-play guy or on air, is you got to tape everything. You got to have somebody that you believe in that can honestly critique what you're doing. But when I was at a young age, I had no mentor. As you talk to people in whatever business it is, somebody always has a mentor. Mm-hmm. Well, I was a guy that was thrown in the mix, and I was the main guy. I was the sports director, and so as I taped and I listened to other people, I knew that I had to change what I was going to do and how I was going to do it. There's no really one way to do it. But my dad one day, he's not a big sports guy. I came home thinking, man, I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good. And he goes, what are you doing? And I said, what do you mean? He said, did you know you said the word couple a lot tonight? I said, I did. And I went back and listened to the tape, a couple of running backs, a couple of wide receivers, pick up a couple of yards. And I mean, so that's why you got to do it. And you have to find people that will give you an honest critique. Don't ever ask your relatives. If you get on the air, they think you're pretty good. So I was fortunate to get out here in 15 years, able to get it to the point where I'm doing about 140 games a year, and I don't have to travel much. I'm home. I go and do it. And just as an example of what may happen and what you can expect, either as a production guy, and Andy knows this as well. And I had a guy. We did a game in South Carolina earlier this year, and I'm talking to the audio guy, and I hadn't seen him for a long time. And I'm talking to him, and I said, well, where are you going? And this is like 11:15 at night.
You talking Gibby? Or was it
I'm not sure.
or Greg?
No, it wasn't one of those guys. It was a guy that I've only seen one or two times.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Yeah, no, and he, and the one thing on the production side is I've always been on air, be it radio or television, and great admiration for production guys and girls. Because you roll in there way before we do, you're laying it down, you're putting it up, and then here we come in, we do the game, and then we're gone. And then this guy was breaking down the cable and the audio and everything in our booth there. It was at Dorman High School. I don't know if you remember that. And so where are you headed? He goes, I'm going to East Carolina tomorrow, because we're all headed someplace, Where are you going? It's always fun to talk to those people. And he said, East Carolina. I go, hey man, I said, they got a noon kickoff. He goes, yes they do. So we're in Spartanburg, 11:15 at night. He's got to be, and your production call is several hours before, so he's doing that, driving all night and going to the next game. Well, the last 2 weeks for me, we ended up doing Furman football in the afternoon, and I do the pregame, postgame, halftime. They do a really nice job. It's not like Clemson where they do 6 hours. They do 3 network and they do 3 local, and they've got about 15, 20 people involved. Good, solid people. I know most of them over there. We do an hour and a half. It's pretty good. We do about 14 different segments during the course of that. So we did football in the afternoon, and it went overtime. And we have this window where we have to get to Asheville and have basketball in the first round of the tournament at 8 o'clock at night. Well, it went overtime, and then we're trying to get up 26. We're having a hard time. They went the COVID test and all that. We get in there, barely made it, and then the cables didn't work. And sometimes they don't work. We're into the pregame. They're playing commercial after commercial, and you're trying to get all this stuff together. And finally, they run 100 feet of Ethernet cord and plug it in, and we get on the air. And the one thing you learn about that, it took me a long time, too long to figure this out, is the people that are watching and the people that are listening, they don't care what's going on behind the scenes. They just want to see the game. Then last weekend, we ended up, and then following that, we did those 2 games on Saturday. We went down to Fluor Field and did 2 baseball games for the Big Ten television network, Illinois and Ohio State, and I forgot the Michigan State and Maryland. So last last weekend, Friday night, we did football. Saturday, we ended up, and we got back really late. I don't know if any of you guys were working the game on Friday. Late, went to East Tennessee, got up at 6 o'clock in the morning, went to East Tennessee, got back at night, and there was a time flip, and you ended up doing 9 o'clock baseball for the Big Ten television network and trying to keep the teams separated as well. So, but you know, to me, I mean, I love doing games. And when I was in the Midwest, and I worked for small time, most of the time you end up working for, you know, the job that I got, it sounded, you know, I'm a sports director for a radio station, and it was the best play-by-play job in the Midwest other than Kansas and Kansas State. But I also had a 5-hour air shift as a disc jockey playing music. And so, you know, you end up with 10, 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, for me anyway, and normally 7 for the most part. So it's not a job that, you know, if you, it's not 9 to 5, you're not going home. But I tell you what, it's unscripted. We saw some of the great stuff down the stretch. The game, I did the play-by-play on Wofford and Furman for the championship. Mm-hmm. Furman wins, they win the championship. Did those games, and then the great comeback by Furman, incredible comeback to win the game 44-37 in overtime over Samford. It's unscripted. That's what I like about it. Now, in 2004, I was the play-by-play broadcaster for Pittsburg State University, and we played for the national championship and lost to Valdosta State in Florence, Alabama, 36-31. Those were horrible games to broadcast because at that time in 2004, Pittsburg State set all the offensive records in NCAA history, and every game was about 62-14. But you know, it's a tremendous. I mean, I love doing it, and there are a lot of hours, and it's hard work, particularly if you're a freelance guy.
Yeah, because you're making, like I said, you're your own boss. You have to make choices. Sometimes, you know, is it worth it to drive the 8 hours for the day rate and then drive 8 hours back? And you have to make the decisions. But be aware that if you become the person who can't be there and won't be there, they will find somebody who will be there. So it's that balancing.
Well, and the other thing, I'll give you one more note, because it can be tough. If you have a family life, I mean, you guys are young guys, and if you're married, and I'm married, and it's two kids, and younger kids, and there's a balancing act there. My wife gets it. And I mean, Andy's wife probably gets it because you have to have somebody that understands. My wife did for 13 years was a television meteorologist, and she was. We moved out here. She was hired by Channel 4 to do the weather on the weekends, and she understands that. But you definitely have to have somebody that understands you're going to be gone. Which she was working on her career. And again, the one thing about it too, guys, is if you want to make it, and you have to operationally define what you mean by make it too. You know, sometimes it's money, sometimes everybody chases the carrot and all that kind of stuff. And I've been very fortunate in my career to be able to do some big time games and to get to a level and be able to kind of do what I want to do now when I want to do it. And usually that doesn't happen. But when she was working on her career, we lived eight years, 2 different cities, and I commuted 179 miles one way. So you got to bounce in this business if you want to. It's like coaching. I always tell those coaches, I said, broadcasting just like that. You may start in Pittsburg, Kansas, and she did, and went to Santa Rosa, California, which is outside of San Francisco. You know, ended up in being a chief meteorologist in Wichita and So we wanted to let her work on her career, but you know, at a certain point, you gotta make that decision. So it's an interesting. I love the profession. It can be tough, and it can also be, you know, depending on what your financial situation is. You need to understand that can be kind of difficult as well too.
Especially if COVID hits in the middle of it.
Yeah, man, that's the other thing is. Well, that's what I'm going to say. I'm a freelance guy, so March 12th of the year before, we did Furman and Quinnipiac at it because we did all the Furman. We did Greenville Drive, Furman baseball. Man, we were doing 110 games a year, and bang! I mean, see you later. I mean, it's over. I mean, I went from 0, I went from 60 to 0 in one day. And so that's the tough aspect of it as well. We were supposed to be doing College of Charleston. That didn't work. We had all the drive games. We were doing 71 drive games. And then fortunately came a little bit of football in. So, you know, but it's exciting. It's fun. And I mean, I'm glad I made the choice to do what I can. And I've gotten to the point where I don't have to be out of town and I don't have to be gone as much as, I mean, I was a member of the Million Mile Driving Club there for a while. So.
Okay, I want to ask, two questions. Number one of the things that I try to get everybody in production to do is to reflect. You know, they have to give me a nugget or two. In fact, after every game, you know,
sure,
you're gone, but you know, anybody who's working on the crew, we gather up, we circle up, and I say, okay, give me a nugget, give me a nugget, give me a nugget, and it's a lesson learned from the production that day. So, give us 3 brief nuggets, and then I want you to talk about pre-production a little bit.
You mean 3 nuggets from the last football game we did?
Just 3 nuggets that you would offer to key things that should help them if they want to be talent. And then I want you to discuss pre-production.
I want to see preparation is one, and two, and one of the we didn't discuss at all, and maybe we will at some point. For the majority of my career, I was a radio guy, and then when I got out here, and again, to just kind of backtrack a second, the only reason I ended up with a job at My 40 was, and I mean to tell you, I contacted every single person that had anything to do with broadcasting when I got out here, and one of them was the general manager of My 40 at the time. I mean, I got Jack Connors. I've got to look up where Asheville is. I had to look up where Greenville was before I even moved out here. Yeah. And I had sent him some information. And, you know, most of the time, 90% of the time, you're not going to hear from him back at all, but you keep trying. And I had gone up to him. Clemson had played South Carolina out at Fluor Field, and I happened to be there. And I saw him, and I knew who he was. At least I'd done enough research to know that. And this was not my personality. And if I give you any other advice as well, is to not aggressively, I wouldn't say pursue, but I was always one guy that thought my work would speak for itself. You know what, I'm pretty good. I'm going to send you my tape. Well, a lot of cases that doesn't work, man. You have to introduce yourself. You have and the way you present yourself. And so I had stopped him in the hallway and just said, hey, I'm Tom Van Hoy. I sent you some stuff, and if you ever have an opportunity, I'd love to work for you. My background, I've done that kind of, and he gave me 3 or 4 minutes, which is kind of one of those things that doesn't happen very often. Never thought anything of it, and then lo and behold, on July 4th, I mean, the guy should have been having a good time with his family. He calls me. Like, what's this guy calling me for? And that's when he asked me to do that. So you never know in terms of who you meet and what it may mean later on. And this guy called me, and it turned out that I've been there for 7 years and doing the game. So I think you need to critique. I think you need to prepare. You also have to be able to handle. One of the differences to me professionally between announcers anyway, and I don't know how it is on the production side, but probably the same way, is that things go wrong, and you have to be able to handle it. Mm-hmm. Instead of, in my opinion anyway, everybody's different. I mean, as you get into it and you're around broadcast, and particularly television, there are so many moving parts and so many things that can go wrong. And as a talent, you're up there, and one of the difficult things for me to do, making the transition from radio to television, when they start talking to you. I'm right in the middle of a sentence, and so when I first started, I'm surprised they didn't let me go after that first year. I mean, I'm sitting there, okay, I'm listening to what they say. Well, you got to continue on with your thought. Finish
you got some producer going,
hey, now we're going to do this, 4, and then they go, no, 10, 9. So, I mean, and I'm I've done it 7 years and done quite a bit of TV since then, but my background is radio, and I still, to this day, have a tendency to maybe stop and you can see what's going on. But my background is radio, and I have a tendency to continue to describe. Well, they can see what's going on, you know. So just handle the situation, because people, and it took me way too long to figure this out, they don't care. They want to see what the eventual product is. And the other thing is down distance score time, they want that. You know, give me that, man, so that we can sit there. And the other thing I would say is, and I'm one of those guys that if you look, and I don't know if any of you guys have any interest, but if you do, I brought scoring sheets for football, basketball, baseball, which is what I use. And if, you know, everybody's different, because the ones that I have, and Jason I work with, Dan Scott, all these other guys, they're all different. So there's no really one way to do it. It's what you feel comfortable is. I would spend so much time preparing. And I mean, I've got everything. I have everything. And the game takes precedence once it starts. But when I was younger, it was like, you know what? I spent all that time. I'm getting this in the game. I'm going to tell you, this guy averaged 3.2 points as a sophomore when he played at Hillcrest High School. I'm getting it in, man. Nobody cares. So, you know, just be prepared. Understand when you want to get it in. The other thing is what you'll run into, and the one thing, particularly if you're on air, is in this day and age, if people don't like you, they are going to let you know about it. And I was walking out of in Topeka, Kansas one day, and I'm walking by myself across the parking lot, and I see this guy coming. I go, well, this is, and as a broadcaster, this can go one of two ways. So, all right, so I'm walking, I get to my car, and this guy comes up. And it was pretty interesting because the play-by-play guy for Washburn was driving up, and he was a big, powerful guy and little guy. We good here, man? I said, yeah. I said, hey, Greg, this guy actually likes me. He goes, we're ahead of the game. So that's the part of the aspect of it is sometimes you do the best you can with what you have. If you critique and feel like you've done the best you can, but every single game that I've ever done has been taped. I've got, back in Kansas, I have a storage unit that's got, you know, too many, 7,000 tapes, and if you ever want to go to sleep at night, I could give you some of those. But the key is you need to feel comfortable with what you're doing, but also, as I said, you get into some patterns. Even on my 40, some of the game we did the other night, Jason Patterson would say something to me, and my response was either, yeah, you know, well. So you get into those patterns and you try to do the best you can, and I think we do a pretty solid job on the My 40 broadcast, given those circumstances.
I'm gonna close the store. I'm here.
Right. You guys have any questions about any of that stuff?
I do have one question, because I do want to go into this business, and especially as talent too.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing that you're a family guy, you said you have 2 kids, right?
Right.
How are you able to handle it? Just with, you know, sometimes you were away, sometimes your wife was away. How are you able to, like, you know, family time, stuff like that? Was it like evenings, weekends? How do you handle it?
Well, the way it actually worked out was pretty good from our standpoint, because she was working on her television career, and I really had a really good situation in the Midwest. But the last thing I wanted to do was for her 15 years down the line to say, man, I wish I'd have pursued that. So we waited before we had kids, and we actually moved out here because of her job. And so and then we had the kids when we were out here. So I had gotten to the point where, I was gone. I was long gone. I would be in Kirksville, Missouri, and then on a Saturday night, and next thing I know, I'm rolling to Wichita about 7 a.m. You know, drove all night to get there. I don't have to do that anymore. I've gotten it to where I'm at home, and I can basically do what I want to do when I want to do. So I take them all to school, and I'll go pick them up later on this afternoon. She got out of the television business. A lot of it was because there are various reasons, but a lot of it has to do with the timing. She was a meteorologist. You want to talk about somebody that's gone? You know, weather turns bad. In the Midwest, she chased tornadoes, and I'm going into the basement. She's on the backside of them, that kind of stuff. So she switched jobs, and with COVID and all that kind of stuff, now she works from home. So it actually has worked out. But it's a very tough. It can be a very tough situation, particularly when you're just beginning.
Yep.
and you're not going to make much money. Let's put it that way. I want to be honest with you guys here, because it is a lot like coaching. You move up, and I know you guys saw some with Joe Buck and stuff like that. But there are very few guys like that get to that particular level, and that's okay. It's like anything else. But you know what? You might, and. I love doing the games. It's all unscripted. You never know what's going to happen from day to day. But we've gotten it to the point where I'm home. I'm to the point where if I go do a game, I'm home. Now, I was explaining, came home in the dark, left in the dark, and all that. And so for the most part, it works out. You make the kind of necessary adjustments. I know a lot of guys that worked at Channel 4 and some sports guys there and things like that had kids, and I never got to see them play volleyball or anything like that, just because that was the nature of the job. So that's one of the things you have to take into consideration if you want to do that.
Different stages in our life have different. There's a great book written by Richard Blackaby called The Seasons of God, and it talks about how different seasons of your life cycle, and you can be in parts sometimes for heavy work, sometimes for nurturing, sometimes for a variety of things. So I just want to throw that book out there. That would be a good one for y'all to read, because it can destroy marriages. It can if there's not that understanding that right now I've got to be putting in the time traveling on the road to build up this career so that we can have a life. Now you're full time with your work. This is your work.
This is what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
as opposed to me, this is what I do, and I do production on the side. Now there's some levels I'm probably never going to get to. I would love to run camera for an NFL game. Probably not going to get to, because I don't spend enough time up in Charlotte to be known and then get picked up. I'll go up there occasionally, work an NFL game as a PA, production assistant, but I'm not going to be pulled in on camera, even though I know other guys who have been pulled in who work the same type of camera work I do, because they're there more often. So there are these kind of trade-offs.
Well, the one thing that you find on the production side too, my brother-in-law directs all the ACC network stuff for Florida State, and it took him a long time before he was a tape guy in the truck, basically, and it took him 4 or 5 years, and he was a freelance guy before he even got to where he was doing stuff like that, and then he got to the highest levels doing that. But it was also one of those situations where he was gone all the time. I mean, gone all the time. He's going, you know what, I think I'll go to Cleveland. I've never been. I'd like to see the Indians play. That's kind of cool. For about 6 or 7 years, and then they had certain situations with kids that they had to stop doing that. But he does that, and the other part at Florida State is a lot like you guys. Is he handles the classes that they take, and at Florida State, I don't know if they're required here, but there are certain classes that if you take that class, then you're required to run camera on.
That's what this class is.
That one is. And what he finds, though, is at Florida State, I think you guys get better here because I think you want to do it, right? Whereas their class is more, they don't really have a broadcast department. They have more of a film, and all these kids they're going to be direct the next biggest film, and they're
not interested in multi-camera.
And the other thing about it is, I don't know if you guys were running camera on baseball, or what we found out is that probably the most difficult sport from a production side, and he's directed and Andy's directed as well, is baseball.
Yeah.
And the other thing about it is, if you're a play-by-play guy, if you're a color, you got to know the game, you got to know the rules, and it depending on what level you are, the high school or the college level, as far as you want to be objective in what you're calling, but you don't want to, at the high school level particularly, call out some kid. He's got to make that. Who does he think he's doing? You can't do that. And so in my opinion, my way we approach it, Jason Patterson and I, Jason spoke, you guys, is this, you know what, the high school stuff is completely different to a certain extent than the college. College is, because you got the moms and dads and all that. But you know, the other thing about it is, what I would tell you is, you never know who's listening, and you have a responsibility. It starts with you, with me. I mean, if I'm going to do this, it's been a detriment to me at times, is I'm going to be prepared. I'm going to be, and this past weekend when I told you about doing the Big Ten television network, I wasn't as prepared as I wanted to be for those games because I didn't have time to do it. Now the people in the Big Ten, they don't care. You know, you better get the names right. Pronunciation, numerical roster. Because we had a guy, we did a game, I don't know if you were working that game, it was here in Christ School. I never can remember. It's Christchurch, yeah. Right. And see, I goofed all that up in North Carolina. I kept, it's Christ School there in Christchurch here, right? Yeah. And so this, I mean, I see this guy, I look around, he goes, this guy wants in, he wants to talk to us? So he comes in and he goes, hey guys, and we're going, well, the ball on the 28-yard line, first down 10, you know, and he goes, so I take my headphones off because Jason's doing play-by. Like, I can help you, sir. He goes, my boy's name is not Spent. You know, we got his name wrong. Well, I'm looking at and they had it wrong in the roster. We had a game against one of the Big Ten games, and it was, I can't remember which one it was. It might have been Maryland. And in the third inning, the guy, Alex, comes down. He was doing PA, and he goes, guys, you got Andy Stevens batting. It's Tom Van Hoy. Look, what are you talking about? Number 9, here's the numerical deal, Tom Van Hoy. Well, what the coach had done is he wrote 9, which you guys know in baseball, right? Right field. And he wrote number 9 over here, which wasn't his number, it was 27. Well, all those people in the Big Ten, they're going, you tell those two idiots that it's, well, all right. So that kind of goes with the territory, but be as prepared as you can.
And I would add to this, trust but verify. When I go work the Swamp Rabbits, the guy from, their house guy has already loaded everything in, but I still sit down with the script and make sure I have everything accounted for in the rundown sheet, because I'm playing back the videos and the commercials and all that stuff. I verified the work that he's done, not because I think he's an idiot, but because with 2 sets of eyes looking at it, we double our shot at getting it right. So. Well,
the game Friday night, Asheville had, it was West Henderson had one lineup. No, it was Asheville. Asheville had one lineup, and then they changed it. So in the course of the game, a running back got hurt.
Yep.
Number 6, and so 15 got in. And Jason Patterson's doing the play-by-play, and I'm doing the color, and he doesn't know who it is. His roster doesn't have it. My roster does. So you just never know. One of the games in South Carolina last year got canceled. It might have been from COVID, and we had to go over and do another game at the last moment.
Yeah.
And again, at the high school level, you're lucky to get stuff. Sometimes you're lucky to talk to a coach. But in this case, we didn't have anything. The guy just never responded, and he was a nice fella. Before the game, we got a program. He's going 82 is the tight end, 76 is the right guard. We're writing this stuff down. Well, these guys need it. You guys need it. You starters and all that kind of stuff. And so that's kind of how we did in the other game. I'll give you one other one. And when we did the Big Ten television network last weekend, was that first game went 4 hours and 9 minutes. Just went on for some of the worst baseball you've ever seen. And there's only 40 minutes between games, and they're giving you the lineups at 10 minutes before first pitch. Okay. So we're writing them in as they step into the box. So I mean, a lot of times you just have to slow down, go back, and make sure you get things right.
You have a question?
Yeah, I Just another question, because actually the last 2 weeks I've commentated the soccer games for school here, so it's been a lot of fun. One question I had, because what I have is I have the rosters right in front of me. My boss, Alan Cahaley, prints them out and gives them to me. But something I do on the side to add to the broadcast, that way throughout the game, I can give the viewers good stats. So I make like my own documents of statistics and facts for both teams. That way I have some interesting facts to talk about throughout the game. Do you do something similar to that, or is there something given to you, or do you do that extra?
As far as the stats?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's incredible at the high school level. We have one guy, Tim Amos, that used to produce all of this stuff, and we had one other guy before that, and unfortunately he passed away. And then Tim took over. He brings a printer, and he prints everything out. I mean, at the high school level, you usually don't have any of that stuff. We're really fortunate in my 40 to be able. And that adds incredible to the broadcast. So,
and I would also add, there's a talent responsibility. Ansley was good about. She would do her own research for her own prep as sideline.
Yep.
That's exactly what I was.
And
Yes.
then, and I as the producer, I would come up with just the key billables, the food for thought,
Yes.
and things like that, and I'd find random facts and all that.
so
So we all work
played.
together.
Yeah.
And the other thing about with soccer is that you're not necessarily doing to the top of the key, under the corner, jump shot up and no good. You got plenty of time. It maybe even fits soccer maybe a little bit better than that to come up with the nuggets. And the one thing I've always thought too is, because my background's in radio, but I've done quite a bit of television. And unbelievably, I was a TV sports anchor. Believe that or not, man, anybody can do it if I can. I was a TV sports anchor on television for 2 years, and it drove me nuts because you get 3 minutes, and that's it. And there was always breaking news and always weather. So you'd spend 4 hours and you got 90 seconds or whatever. But I mean, I always like the play-by-play stuff anyway. But I'll give you one other story. I don't want to bore you to death, because there's a million stories. But this year we did Furman, Alabama. Alabama in basketball. Alabama would not let us come in because of COVID. That's what they said. Well, when we got a hold of they said it was an SEC rule. Well, it turns out it wasn't. Alabama just didn't want any visitors to come in. Well, all right, that's all right. That's their call. So we're set up at the Furman football complex, big screen, and like you've seen, guys are everywhere. The ESPN guys are remotely doing it. Well, we were remotely doing it, and we're going along. Yeah, that's not bad. We're looking at that. Hey, number 13 here. And lo and behold, 2 minutes into the third quarter, boom, the screen goes blank. Well, wait a minute. Now what are we going to do? And you were talking about stats. Yeah. At the collegiate level, you got anything you want. You have everything you want. Now, and I'll tell you this: when I first started in small-town American Kansas, a town of 18,000, we had a couple of radio stations, and they were all they were both doing the same game. Like the 1A high school and all that. And so how am I going to separate myself from somebody else? How can I get them to listen to me? That's the key. You only have so many relatives and grandparents that can watch you. And I developed my own scoring system and all that kind of stuff so that I could recap, I thought anyway, better than anybody. So if you can develop a few of those things and can help separate yourself in that regard. Well, the good thing about that was that goes blank. Well, what are we going to do? We got 17 minutes to go in the ball game. It's at 28-27, and Furman's got the basketball, and we got nothing. Okay, all these people are listening. What you have at the collegiate level is something called stat broadcast. Are you familiar with that at all?
I think so.
Yeah, it has a running commentary or telling you what's going on. So what happened was, I'm doing color, the guy doing play-by-play. He's over there. We're trying to get the feed back. We don't have it. It's coming up as we see it. Wow. So what we did is like 1934 and Ronald Reagan or whomever, there's a base hit, you hit it.
That's a hit.
That's exactly. We recreated almost the entire second half.
Oh my goodness.
Because, and here's the other part about that is, and what you had are basically what you had were two really experienced broadcasters. Not that anybody else couldn't have done it, but while he was trying to do that, and this is another case where, as a color guy, I can't tell you about 5 technique, 3 technique, any of that stuff. I'm not a coach, and I played in high school and basketball and stuff like that, but I'm not going to give you that kind of stuff. But what I can give you is we can fill that. So what we ended up doing for almost the entire second half, it would pop up and what it would say is the ball goes out of bounds, Furman basketball, and then it would say basket by Jones, and all that kind of stuff. So we would recreate what we saw coming up on the screen, and I mean, people had, and we thought, man, that was terrible. And then nobody seemed to know anything about it. And they said, why didn't you talk about that controversial call? Didn't you see it when it was touching? You guys just said it went out of bounds. We got no idea. We didn't see it. So those things happen, and we adjusted on the fly. And the thing about it is, what happens is that's what on the production side too. You better have a plan B. Right?
Yeah, Tom and I were talking about that time, and you said you weren't on that game, right? You just heard about it?
Which one was that?
The one where the DT-12 was busted?
Oh, yeah, I wasn't on that one.
Yeah, our whole audio feed from the court side was shot because somebody disconnected something they weren't supposed to, not somebody on the crew, somebody on the house. And they busted the fitting, and they wound up having to run a microphone, and they did the game like this. Running the microphone through my camera back into the control, which pulled we didn't have my handheld, first of all, and secondly, they didn't have talkback, so I'm the floor director talking to the talent and pointing to and relaying communication. But you know what? We showed a game, we had the game, and we did broadcast.
And you play the commercials.
And you play the commercials.
Well, I don't know if we got time, but I'll tell you 2 more stories here. And
then we're going to let you take us through.
I do, Jason Patterson, you guys may know, he has a production company, and his company produces the Conference Carolina. I do all those games the last several years, the baseball games, and I'm not sure it was a North Greenville game, but it's up in Burlington, and we couldn't play there because of field conditions, and they sent us to Elon, couldn't do it because they sent us over to Asheboro. Okay, which is a minor league park. Oh, that's all right. We plug in. Can we go? And they go, yeah, you're good. Well, we get there, and so we plug in because you got to plug in you got to feed all this stuff. You got to do everything, and the radio guys for Belmont Abbey show up, and what are you guys doing? This is our stuff. So everybody's blowing up. Why? But it was they had first priority. So what are we going to do? How are we going to get on the air? And you're sitting there going, man, we're past plan B. Well, we took an iPhone and streamed it through something. iStream, you guys are probably maybe know a lot more. Technically, I don't know anything. But anyway, to make a long story short, we broadcast the game. We put it here. It's facing that way. There's the field, and we put it here, and it on a ledge, and that's the shot that they're getting. That's it. And they say, don't say a word, and that's the other thing I'll tell you is don't ever say a word. I mean, like, wow, man, she's nice looking, or, anything like that. Don't ever say anything because you get yourself in trouble. I did that when I was in the beginning, nothing bad, but I don't ever say a word because even on the My 40 stuff, if you go back and you watch it on the stream, you can hear stuff. So what they told us was, don't say anything during the breaks, and you had to stand there and and talk into it that way. And I lean back, and the gutter guy would come in that way. So just those kind of things happen. We got it on the air, and I believe me, it was shooting through a screen, and I'm not sure you could see anything at all. But those are the things that happen in this business, production-wise, and from a broadcasting standpoint. So while those guys are working on it, you got to be able to fill and move on.
And one thing to remember is that it is a team effort, and that's one of the things I appreciate about Tom, is he understands that we're doing what we can do, and he's doing what he can do, because we all want the production to go and make a successful production for the executive producer, the one who pays our bills, and for the viewers at home who are watching it. And that's critical. We are all a team working together.
Well, on TV, like I said, I've been so much in radio. I mean, there's so many moving parts in television that you can come out of there exhausted sometimes.
Okay, give us a few seconds of how, I mean, not a few seconds, but I'm going to play this, and then give us some kind of like some play-by-play, how you would describe, and then color.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, but first of all, it's TV work in, I think this is Limestone and
Limestone in North Greenville.
in North Greenville. So as he receives it, and from a radio standpoint, I'd be calling that, he's across the 25 to the 30-yard line, he's out of the 37-yard line, first down and 10 from there. You can see that, and what you might just say if you're doing it on TV is, Jones has it, got pretty good running room, he's able to get it out to the 37-yard line. And the color guy may roll right underneath and say, I'll tell you what, that was a nice block on the outer edge. He was cut back inside. He was able to get it out to the 37. They got pretty good field position there. First and 10, no score. We're 13 seconds to go in the first quarter of play. Let's see what they can get going here. Be nice if they could get on the board and take the lead here in the first quarter of play. So Limestone's got the ball at the 37-yard line. 3 down linemen there you see, and 4 linebackers. They'll just take it up the right side. And across the 40, rolling to the 43. There's your radio. But TV, as we come next, we'll see what the lineup. And here you're going, well, that was Jones. You talking about all the stuff you had. Jones, he's a 5'11", 195-pound junior, and he comes out of Spartanburg, played at Spartanburg High School over that way when Chris Miller was their head coach. And remember him when he had about 1,000 yards rushing back his senior year when they went to the state championship. So second down play, about 7 yards. Not much up inside. The defensive line bottles it up. It brings up third down and 7. At that point, the color guy will roll in with, there's great penetration up front. Billy Jones, that left defensive tackle there, was able to take on the center and bottle it up. Nothing there. He might want to bounce it outside next time. So he can take it as far as he wants up until right now, because I don't have to set that. Radio, I'm setting that slot left, wide receiver right, football to the 42-yard line. Quarterback looks over to the sideline now. Well, you can see that if you're a TV guy. And again, how are they going to do? You watch the defense. Mostly, if you're doing the play-by-play, your focus is on the offensive side. And then you say, well, there's a quick out there, and you got up to about the 47-yard line. Not enough for a first down. You might want to run that pattern a little bit farther out, cut to the inside part if you want to pick up the first down. So I guess they still have it there. So quickly they come to the line of scrimmage. And the other thing about it is, and it's the hardest thing that I've had to do, is you don't have to comment all the time. Then you go back to that and he powers it up inside. As a radio guy, you're going 30, 25, 20 down to the 18-yard line. Great room there. But as a TV guy, you can see what's going on. So if you were to call this from TV standpoint, you just kind of look at it. Is that right? 4th and 1. Look like you. There we go. Okay.
Yeah.
We're approaching
First
11
and
minute
10.
mark in the first quarter play. And first down 10, drive alive. Tries to get to the outside, but not much there. But pursue the line of scrimmage. Linebacker coming down. You see Jones there. Jones was able to come up and make that play. He's a catalyst for that defense. That defense has only given up 38 yards rushing per game this year, and already Limestone's doing a pretty good job setting the tone, taking control of the line of scrimmage. If you can't run it up inside, that sets it up as a pinch down, then you can sweep to the outside. Pretty good gain. So you can see that he's looking to the sideline. You go 3 wide again, 2 running backs. There's Joe Smith, who's been the coach at Limestone for a couple of years. He'll bounce it. Good running room there. He's a 30. He's out of the 20. Inside the 10, head down. He powers his way inside the 5-yard line. He's knocked out of bounds at the 4. So I lay out at that point. Color guy comes underneath, and he'll tell you a little bit about that and what happened, why it happened, if you know why it happened. But apparently there's a penalty marker on the play. So that's the other part about that. See, he bounced it all, and the angle that guy took was wrong. He came back inside, and And I talk a little bit about how went inside because that's where the run was supposed to be, and he bounced and he was able to get out to the. But it's all negated by a penalty. That's after we've already said all of that, and then we just now see the penalty marker.
I remember times when we've gone to break and on a field goal, extra point, and lo and behold, there's a penalty. I made that mistake twice, and from now on, it's like, are we clear?
And high school kids aren't used to TV, so they're standing at the line of scrimmage while you're taking a two and a half minute break. Penalty marker puts it back at the 36-yard line, set up there, second down, and a long way to go. Says 19, but it looks like it's.
No, they've got, it's only 3 yards.
And they go back to Smith. This time, the penetration was there, and he was able to knock him down. So from a play-by-play standpoint on television, you can pretty much see it, and you don't have to describe everything that's going on, and then the camera's going to show you that guy, and you can talk a little bit about that guy if you want to.
Question. Okay, right there. It says 2nd and 19, and I saw you key off of that, but if you look up there, it's...
That's why you got to pay attention and don't...
Yeah.
Because I was one of the... It might have been the other night I got caught.
Okay, now 3rd and 4.
Yeah,
now they
I
fixed
get it right. Want to keep this drive alive. Again, 4 down linemen edging up. They might want to come. They try to go back inside. Nope, prior to that.
Now, I want to bring out one point here. If you see there's a discrepancy with what's on the screen and up there, if you say 4 yards, that's fine, but you don't need to point out contrary to what it says on there.
Yes.
Yeah. From a production standpoint, people in the truck, look, I'm getting to it, and then it can set up the animosity. It's a team.
Well, and the other thing about this is, as they always say, if you want to be a commentator, play-by-play guy, you need to kind of do this in the confines of your home or someplace. I mean, when I began, there was none of this opportunity with all the games that are. I mean, I actually wrote a guy a letter and he sent me some cassette tapes. That's a long time ago. So that I would listen to those cassette tapes, and I actually wrote them down by hand. 2 wide receivers here, slot right, double, tight ends over here, 4 down linemen and all that. Radio, you can get a lot of that stuff in. Television, you let it kind of tell the story. And I still do a little bit of play-by-play every now and then on the television side, and I'm still too quick. But I also do think.
Okay, Did you want to talk more about football? You want to
that's fine.
Let's look at some baseball.
Yeah, I was gonna.
What were we gonna say?
I was just gonna say I most of the guys that you see at the highest level are very good. I mean, they're solid. If you watch ESPN, there's a template for how they want them to do it.
Yeah. And actually, there's a template for most sports.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
But I think you can. And most of the guys that I work with are TV guys. They grew up TV. I grew up radio. I think you can add more on television than they are now to provide background. But baseball, it's gotten to the point too. And there's a couple of ways to look at this. If you watch ESPN on Sunday night, it's all about exit velocity, spin ratio, and all that. Analytics is important, but I'm more along the lines of calling the action rather than saying, hey, you know what, it left the bat at 190 miles an hour. Exactly.
So how would you call this?
If it was a TV game, you've already set it up, whatever is 3-2, and you can see it. You just go, hey, that's good play by Greinke, and then he tosses over to first. They don't have to say much at all. So here comes the pitch. It's low and away. He just made a nice play there. Greinke, when he was with Kansas City, he had all those anxiety problems. They stuck with him, and look what happened to him. Greinke's also a guy that he has said, and will show you, and he has, what he's going to throw sometimes. So you kind of like him as a character. Then you let it go. It's in the dirt. Laid off that. He wants to throw that pitch, but he doesn't want to throw it right there, right then in that count, because he gets to 2-0. So if you're a hitter now, You're ahead in the count. You can look fastball if you want. And if it isn't there, just let it go. Then you take a look at Brett Strom over there. Strom's been with the Houston Astros since 1948 or something like that, you know. So you can see the pitch. You don't have to call the pitch unless you're on radio. And that one stays low.
Whoa.
So it's 3 balls and no strikes. It's top of the fourth, 1-0. Houston leads it as we go to a commercial break.
Which makes absolutely no sense in how that is. But oh, that's a YouTube. Okay, one thing to observe here with television, you can let the video talk.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in radio, how would you be looking at this?
All right. That's the top of the fourth, 1-0. Houston leading Washington, 3 balls, no strikes. Greinke now
You hear the
has
score,
to come
You
in.
hear what the occasional markers of where we are in the game.
And you would be going, there's the wind and the pitch. He throws fastball inside, and, you know, he took it all the way. 3 balls and 1 strike. He's still ahead of the count. He can look ball in location if he wants to right now. You know, his first time up, he hit that line shot to right field, and a great running catch over there by Billy Smith. So we'll see what he does here. Greinke, having thrown 39 pitches, and Anthony Rendon is 0 for 1 on the day. Comes back inside and pops that ball up. Good pitch on 3 balls and 1 strike. He didn't leave it out over the plate. He came up and dipped down, tried to catch the corner of the corner of the plate. And even if he hits the ball, it's in on the handle and it's not going to go anywhere. Let's remember SmackDown coming up Fridays, 8 o'clock on Fox. You got to promote everything. So back to 3 balls and 2 strikes. Still the top of the fourth. Houston 1-0 lead, 2 outs. Zack Greinke, who's been here before. Look at this crowd. Isn't it great to have crowd back? 2021. Here's the wind. The pitch on the way again. Comes back inside at 89 miles an hour. Boy, what a pitch on 3-2. He got down 3-0. Came back, able to foul it off. Got 1 call, foul ball. Came back inside. Even if he hits it, it's going to be foul. And look at the rotation of that and the way the catcher's set up. Framed it perfectly as well. And there are some happy fans as we go to break with the Astros leading 1-0 as we head to the top of the 5th inning.
That comes from years of doing it and developing skill.
But I mean, and again, like I said, I've made a million mistakes, and I think I was smart enough to tape everything and try to get better at what I did and figure it out. You know, let's try to slow it down, and you can take a breath too. I mean, even when I was doing it there, that was quick. You can slow it down, and you can be. And in radio, the thing about it too is you can be after the fact. They're not seeing it, so the play can happen, and they have no idea that it's happened. Whereas in TV, you can see it. Mm-hmm. So here's Max Scherzer. He's got 56 pitches as we head to the bottom of the fourth. I think I said the top of the fifth, but we all know it's the bottom of the fourth. Going against
And if you do
Carlos
make a
Correa.
mistake, if you correct it, don't mention it again. It's done. If you need to apologize, you've apologized. Everybody who needed to hear it has heard it. Somebody coming in new, they're not worried about it because they never heard it to begin with.
And here comes the 0-2. Just inside, tried to frame it. Max Scherzer, who at one time was with the Detroit Tigers. All of a sudden, he's now with the Washington Nationals, and this is a team that is built to make a run for a potential world championship. Comes back in again, 96, inner part of the plate. Back-to-back fastballs inside, so he's done that, which means you back him off the plate a bit. He might come out and try to throw that breaking ball away on the outer edge and see if the catcher can frame it there. Radio, you're still calling the setup, and you can let it go. 2-2 pitch. And he did. He went fastball inside, came back, breaking ball, middle part of the plate, didn't leave it up. And now you're going to get a look at the different approaches by both Zack Greinke on your right and Max Scherzer on the left. 2 outstanding pitchers. And look how Greinke was able to feel that ball by the way he came off the mound versus the way Scherzer was falling toward first base. Set to do the 2-2 again. Over the heart of the plate. Should be easy. The throw, and that'll do it.
Okay, last part of the class. Tom, what do you wish production people knew about talent?
It's an interesting question because, as I was talking earlier, I had not been a color guy, and now I do a lot of color, and I didn't have that much appreciation. I always had appreciation of the production guys, but I think just the shots that you set up, and a lot of it's going to have to do with the director and the producer and what they're telling you to do to begin with. Understanding the game, where you are in the game in terms of are we going to go to the food for thought? Are we going to go down there? It's invariably, and it's just one of those things. Every time we go to the sidelines, we end up with a 78-yard run for a touchdown. But no, just great respect for the production side of things. You need to know the game. We talked a little bit about baseball maybe being the most difficult one in terms of how you set your shot.
From a production standpoint, baseball is just plain weird. Okay, because there's so many shifting assignments. Remember we talked about camera assignments. So if it's your batter, you've got a right-handed batter, you're at the first base camera, you're shooting, you go from the close-up, you got the head to toe. The batter's running to first, but you've also got to be aware that there's a runner at third who's going to be making the play for home. So you've got to be able to switch. You bring off the runner headed to first, and as soon as this guy comes in, you're headed back into home. So you've got to have a brain in the game at all times. You've got to be thinking of what are the 2 or 3 possible outcomes within the next 2 seconds and how I'm going to respond. So yeah, baseball, especially first and third base, are really, you've got to be thinking 2 or 3 steps ahead.
Let me ask you this, because I've been more on the talent side. Are there meetings that you all have before that talk about these things? And is it the director's responsibility? The producer is telling you where to go, basically,
well,
right?
No, the director tells us where to go.
I mean, but I'm talking about as far as the broadcast. See, that's the different part about it. I can take it where I want in radio. I can take it anywhere. But in television, the story is being told by somebody else to a certain extent.
Okay, you have your standard assignments. When I mean by assignments, high game knows what they're supposed to do. High hero, sideline, end zones. Let's say for football, are first and third base, outfield, over home plate. We know our assignments. And then sometimes before the game, if it's a new crew, or like we had a new director Friday night, so Mark took us out and said, okay, this is what I'm expecting of you. With Chuck's used to working with us, and we know his style, so we've kind of grown into knowing Chuck. Mark does things different, so he took us through a pre-pro meeting. At the NFL, from talking to a buddy who runs camera, they have a pre-pro with the cam ops where they discuss who's going to be doing what and how they're going to be for every game. Mm-hmm. So it varies from director to director, situation to situation. And it depends on the number of cameras. When I'm shooting soccer, I know I'm high hero. Now we do have a pre-pro meeting for that, where the director says, okay, this is what I'm looking for, this is what I expect, this is what I mean for a high game to have their closer shot. I don't want you to go any closer than this, stay this wide, high hero, this is what I'm looking for, head to toe, waist up, whatever. Mm-hmm. So, there will usually be something of a meeting to define what the assignments look like. When I'm directing, I do more church oriented. I'm saying, okay, this is what I mean for this kind of shot, this is what I mean for this kind of shot. It's not my camera operators are dummies. It's just that way when I'm using terminology, they understand what I'm saying.
Well, and the other part about it too, as a play-by-play guy or color guy, we're headed down one road, and then all of a sudden we're hearing something else that they tell us in our ear. Well, we're eventually gonna get there.
Yeah.
You need to finish the thought. They've told us, and we're gonna get there. So they have to give us time to go.
Yeah,
because
like we may have a package. We say, hey, we have a package on white 32 defensive plays, and then you or Jason may be setting this thing up, and then all of a sudden we hear from the EVS, oh wait, something blue, and then we're having to
and
give
you're
you
going, well, you know what,
readjustment.
Billy Smith's having a nice. We'll take a look at that here coming up in just a bit.
Yeah.
So the director and the producer, they need to. We always talk about you got to understand the game. You got to understand the game as production, but as a play-by-play guy, know the rules, all that kind of stuff. The producer and director have to know that stuff too, so that if there's a third down and if it's in the fourth quarter with a couple of minutes to go and it's 3rd down and 1, we don't need to be doing food for thought.
Yeah.
We want to.
Yeah, there is an adrenaline, there is a flow to the game, and you do not want to. That's where I had to learn, because I'm thinking.
You're trying to get it in.
Yeah, I'm looking, I've got to get these commercial breaks in. Oh, they just called, we just had a punt, a turnover. I mean, the ball's been turned over, let's go to break. And this was a key, the punt didn't go very far, and now the team has come out and they're at the 50-yard line instead of at the 20, and they're poised, and I've just called a break, and I'm putting my name on it, okay? I just called a break. Why? Because we just had a punt. And I had to learn, this at the very beginning. So you've got to, that game flow, think of what your viewer is going to be experiencing and how you're going to affect the mood, the momentum of what's going on the game. We should not be affecting the play of the game.
And the one thing, guys, I don't know if you work on them or you've been on the My 40 broadcast, is this for high school football? I mean, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
What you're seeing, and I mean, I got friends all over the country that are in the business, and occasionally I'll ask them to check it out and see what you think, and a lot of the commentary is that the production value looks really good, and that's something to be proud of as well. So every time we go down to the check presentation, something happens, down there. So there are a lot of moving parts in television. Radio, you more or less control what's going on, where you want to go with it, and how do you describe the action. And again, and I can still to this day take my own advice. Is just it's okay to pause. Mm-hmm. It's okay to breathe a little bit.
Okay, Tom. Thank you,
sir. Oh yeah, no, anytime, guys. Good luck with the careers. I mean, it's fun. Believe me, I've been one of the fortunate guys and have been able to do some big games. Mm-hmm. But you know what? Those games at the high school level, and I did so many high school games. It's so important to those kids and their parents and their grandparents that take pride in that as well.